Welcome, everybody. This is Ryan, and I am back with Morgan Ingram from part two. For those that missed part one, go back and check it out. He breaks down his entire process on how he's grown millions in revenue through using video on LinkedIn. And he specifically helps CEOs, revenue leaders do the same so that they can leverage the platform of LinkedIn and YouTube to generate real revenue results. Morgan, welcome. Happy to have you back, man.
I'm glad to be back.
Yeah. So this episode, man, we're gonna talk a little bit deeper, more on like where things are going, right? I mean, I don't want to say a futurist like me, where you're focused on where the puck's going and what's happening and where it's at. So one of the things that we talked a lot about on was video. And because of like the mass proliferation of like written AI generated content across multiple platforms, but specifically on LinkedIn, is like, what do you see happening with video? And then like, why are you all in on video as the future?
So there are three main things here. I always look at things as in what is hard for people to do and what is things that people are hesitant to actually just do in general. And one of those is video, right? Because you have to show yourself, you have to articulate your points. It typically is a little bit more higher lift to do it. And so it's just harder for people to do that. And also, it's just harder for people to just stand out doing it too, because you could do video and not go up. So yeah, exactly. So that's like my number one thing is that like, there's a lot of people who just will never do it and will just sit behind their writing and that's it. There are people though that are really good writers and they've gotten so good at it that like they probably never have to get on video, and that's great. But for the majority of people that may not take that lane, I think there's a lane of people who will want to get on video because number two, my point is that it will increase trust. And that's not something that's hypothetical. That's based on actual real data, that if you create video, that it leads to more trust because people can see you, they can hear you, etc. And three, at some point it may happen, but AI, the likelihood of it doing a video AI and you feel like it's a real person, it just isn't there yet from what I've seen. I'm also happy to be corrected and maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't seen any AI that was like, that felt like a real connection and that was like a human really talking to me. So those are the reasons why I really like video and why I do believe it is still super strong.
Yeah. I agree with you on that. It makes a lot of sense. That's what, I don't know if do you ever listen to Marketing Against the Grain podcast at all?
I do.
Check
Yeah. They're going super deep in a lot of stuff right now with AI, but I know we're going to talk about it, but yeah.
Yeah. So, well, they've been big waving the flag on video and saying like, it's going to be like content creator focused because of the fact that like what you're saying, like there's going to be a lot of different people that are leveraging content, pushing it out there. But if it's not attached to like personality and visualization, it's not going to be totally adopted, or even, the trust level goes down. So let's bring out the example. And I mentioned this to you, like Rowan Chang from The Rundown. He did a video avatar of himself, and because he's like, I suck in front of video. I'm not very good at it, right? He's one of those people you mentioned, has great writing skills. I think his newsletter is like 800 or 900,000 people, talks about like AI news, and did a great job growing and building that on X and LinkedIn. One of the things and I got to go back and look at the exact numbers, but I think he did like he had some insane results from posting AI generated videos of himself covering just different topics across different platforms. Instagram was in there. I think LinkedIn was in there and some other areas. So what's your take on that, man? And like, does that go against what we just talked about, right? Because the stuff's changing so fast, it's always hard to keep your finger on it.
Yeah. So basically, he didn't make the video at all. It was AI generated, and it was him just talking through. I had to see it to understand. Like,
yeah, man. So he did a bunch of them. So it wasn't just one. He did multiple videos, and basically he used, can't remember if it was like HeyGen or Synthesia, but basically he generated it. He basically used his voice, not a fake one, right? He used his voice, created a clone of that, and then created a clone of him doing a video. So then all he needed to do is feed the script so he could scale his video capabilities.
I got it. So, but it was probably walkthrough, right? He was walking through something.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, it was him just talking.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's extremely interesting. So, I'd have to see it. So I don't have a really good take on it before I kind of go into it. I'll probably say two things. Is one is that I'd be curious to see if that would be the same impact if it was someone who didn't have an audience at all versus someone who
Right.
does,
Yep.
right? Because he already has one. So that's a huge benefit that like, hey, if I do something, like people are going to most likely engage. But that is interesting. I think the second thing is that if you if you were to do that on a longer term basis, I don't know if that would help the trust factor though moving forward of the content you create. That's just like my hypothesis on it. But I don't know. I'd have to see the comments to see how people reacted. They were like, oh, this is fine or whatever. Or maybe because it also, bonus to this, he talks about AI. So if he were to do an AI video, it wouldn't knock him versus like if someone talked about being authentic and transparent and they did an AI video, that
Yeah.
would not work for their brand. So I think that's another thing to take in consideration here too. Like his brand is on AI, so you can't really knock him for doing that. But if someone else did it and they were saying authentic transparency and they did it, they probably are going to have a different conversation. That's
That's a
the way that
really,
I think about it.
yeah, that's the great meta analysis, if you will.
Yeah.
A, he's got an audience build. B, that's on brand with what he talks about and how he
Right.
focuses. So that makes sense. And then like, I think as you were talking, like something that hit me, and this is like going to be really important with AI agents coming out, because I think things are going to go crazy this year with agents. I've already seen micro examples of like tactical agents. It's going to keep expanding, but it's like, are you optimizing for the algorithm? Like the algorithm wants certain types of videos, or are you optimizing for trust? Right. And obviously Nirvana would be to do both at the same time. So then,
That's the goal. It's actually, this is a really good question here. Um, I posted on X, Twitter, or whatever, what do you want to call it nowadays? And I said, I said the trust economy is greater than the intention economy. So shout out to Will Allred. He replied and said, but like, do we want to go for attention and think about? He's basically said like, think about it as an artist who's trying to get attention to get out there. And I said, well, first of all, music is a completely different scenario than the B2B realm. It's just a little bit different. But to his point, I see where he's coming from is like, you can't just be like, I'm going to post this and it's super credible and it gets 2 likes. I get that. So the premise though is that you need to think about the content that you create. And yes, there needs to be research like we talked about already to actually get the attention. But if you're just focusing on attention, you're focusing on it wrong. You need to focus on building the right trust with the right attention. There are people out there. I'm going to use YouTube for example. There are people out there who have 500, 600 views on a video and make like $200,000 a month.
wait,
So, yes.
so
So like,
600 views on a video and they make 200,000 a month off
yeah,
it. How?
because of the content they have focus on is so niche or targeted,
So
and they have trust with those people who have high purchasing power.
give me an
So
example of someone like this, because I agree with you. I'm just curious of like who you have in mind when you're citing this. Like, so anybody in mind that you could think of that would be.
yeah, I'm not gonna like call out a certain people because then y'all gonna look these people up. So I don't like all that because I don't put them out there. But what I'm saying is that like, let's say if someone does like, they do like super high end IT consulting or super high end like B2B consulting, for example, and they're talking about something, a super niche problem that they're getting super granular on. And they know that probably only 1,000 people, I'm making this up, 1,000 to 5,000 people, I don't know their exact TAM, but 1,000 to 5,000 people are probably going to watch this. So if they're able to answer this direct thing, yeah, they watch all their videos. And like, that's a trusted source and be like, hey, it's going to cost you $500,000 to solve this problem. That's like a cornerstone of what happens. People go through videos and they watch all these different things to see if they trust you. And then they're willing to make that purchase. That's just a baseline example. But there are also other examples where people could sell. People literally can even do, I'm trying to think of an example. You could do like niche, like you help with like HVAC or cleaning, roofing, for example, right? And you're really good at this certain area in town of roofing with high, wealthy, network people in, I'm making this up, San Diego, and you're just really good at this roofing or HVAC thing. You only get 1,000 to 5,000 views due to the area you're in, but these are high purchasing power people. Again, I'm just giving you all baseline examples, but like that's the way you have to think about things. Is that like, would you rather have trust with all of the private equity firms and they called you every day to solve the problems? Well, that's only what, a couple of people in the world. Let's say, I don't know, it's 1,000 people. So if those 1,000 people watch my YouTube videos, I would be making more money than most people. So that's what I mean by the trust economy, is that like, what are you actually saying? It's not that, it's like, you can get attention a lot of different ways. You can go spin up a pod. You can have people comment on your posts. You can go write very clickbaity things and things of that nature and get a lot of attention. And that's why when I say trust over attention, that's what I'm talking about. Like if you're focusing on the path to attention, it's not going to lead you in the direction that you want. If you focus on the path of trust, yes, there are things you have to do to get attention, but you're focusing on the right thing. So that's what I mean by that. So if that clarifies on like what I say, like, yes, you can not have that many views and make a lot of money there.
Yeah, no, I've heard that too. Like, right, you don't have to, because a lot of people that are super into the entertainment videos don't buy a lot. It's just entertainment. Right?
I forgot his name. He's got a video. He's got like 2 million followers, but he like doesn't make that much money.
Yeah, or they make money off the ad spend, which isn't that much either.
Which also isn't that much.
Yeah, when you look at it, so that's more what it's optimizing for, is the ad spend.
Yeah.
Versus actually like what we're talking about is product spend, right? Or offering spend, if you will.
Exactly. That's like the premise point. But yeah, ultimately it's like when you create the content, you got to figure out, how am I creating content where people can increase trust with me, so that at some point you've created enough content where you can reach out to someone and they're like, yeah, I know who this person is. I know what you're about. That's what you want.
Do you think, and this is one of the things, I'm curious on your take on, because like, we're looking at, do you think more people are going to continue on the business side? And maybe I'm even wrong on this right now, but like are super defaulting to YouTube to understand more about companies rather than LinkedIn or blog articles or whatever? Do you think folks are going to continue to gravitate more towards YouTube as a deciding factor in terms of purchases?
So my answer is also biased because these are the decisions that I'm making, but also making decisions because it's what I believe in, right? So I think this is an industry dependent answer, I think, overall, before I go into what I'm going to say, because yes, there's some industries that are still going to read the blogs and do those things. And so before someone's like, well, we don't do that in our industry, like, I understand that, but we're not going to go through each one here to figure out like, yes or no.
B2B SaaS, B2B SaaS. Let's say B2B
SaaS. Yeah. I believe that more people will go to YouTube to figure out what this brand is about, their personality, their ethos, and to get educated. I actually was talking to a fellow creator on LinkedIn about this, and we laughed about it because they asked me a similar question. And I said, think about it this way. When you're at home and you may or may not watch TV, and you turn on your TV, you're probably actually going to be looking at YouTube on your TV. You're not going to put up the LinkedIn feed on your TV. You're not putting the X feed on your TV. You're putting on YouTube. So when you think about that, it's like you're putting on YouTube.
Well, that's entertainment, but people use this thing all the time. And you know what I mean? That's the other equalizer with it. But I agree with you. I do the same thing. Like, I'm not going to I would probably rather watch YouTube most of the time than TV, except if it was like live sports, personally. Like,
and I feel like people want more depth of understanding of because you can't get depth on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I can only have a certain amount of characters. Like, over time, could I get depth if you looked on my post? Sure. But I could do an hour video and say, hey, here's exactly how we solve this problem. Here's where we're at. Like, there's just more depth, I believe, long-term with YouTube. Plus, it's just different when you can see someone really dig into that and be like, well, I trust them even more because they're able to do those things. So my belief is that more buyers will go to YouTube to check out like what's going on longer term. I'm not saying, I don't know if that happens this year or not. I don't have a timeline on it. I just think that more people will start to pay attention because that's how they're making their decisions on probably other things, is probably going on YouTube to look at what the review was and what they said or how to do something rather than LinkedIn. And I think LinkedIn has work to do to get themselves in a more credible spot as a whole to showcase that, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, I think that's a good point, Matt. I think it's a really good view on that. Makes a ton of sense. We're just about to wrap up, but as a closing question, what's going to be the number one thing you're focused on for your business and your customers' business for 2025 and beyond?
The number one thing I'm focused on? I would say, this is a lot of things I think about as a whole. I would say the number one thing for me is making sure I'm putting my team in the right spot. That's actually what it comes down to from what I've analyzed. Like, I have to do my job as the CEO, which is my main thing is like acquisitions. So this marketing, the sales and all that stuff, like I need to be able to do that. But I also need to make sure my team is in the right spot to do those things across the board. And it ultimately kind of is the number one purpose is to build AMP and let people know what that name is more than my own brand, which is, a whole thing in itself. But that's like my number one focus is like, let's go build something off of like AMP, not just me. Let's go extend beyond that. In order to do that, I have to put my team in the right places. And everything else that we're focused on goal-wise will fall into place because of that.
Love that, man. All right, where can people find you? Where can they find more about you and AMP?
Yeah, if you want to hear more about AMP, ampcreative.io, check us out there. YouTube, we talked about it. Morgan J. Ingram there. LinkedIn, Morgan J. Ingram. If you got any questions, you want to hit me up, that's where I'm at.
Awesome, man. Well, it was great having you on for part 2 and part 1, which if you didn't listen, go back and check. We go in through some really cool AI workflows in that as well. So, Morgan, pleasure, man. It was great seeing you again. And I will see you again soon, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. And we will see you on the next episode.